What is the optimal age for a woman to get married? A data-driven discussion of biology, psychology, economics, culture, and marriage stability. One of the most sensitive and frequently debated questions in modern relationship discussions is this: what is the best age for a woman to get married? Some people answer from tradition. Some answer from religion. Some answer from biology. Some answer from feminism, economics, or personal experience. Some say women should marry young, before they become too independent, or before the dating pool changes. Others say women should wait until they are educated, financially stable, emotionally mature, and clear about who they are. Some people frame the issue around fertility. Others frame it around divorce risk, career goals, or the ability to choose the right partner. But if we want a serious answer, we have to move beyond slogans. The better question is not simply, at what age should a woman get married? The better question is, what age range gives a woman the strongest combination of emotional maturity, relationship judgment, fertility options, financial stability, social support, and marital success? Once we ask the question that way, the answer becomes more nuanced. There is no one perfect age. The best age depends on what outcome we are trying to optimize. If we are talking about biological fertility, the answer leans younger. If we are talking about emotional maturity and identity development, the answer leans later than the teenage years and early 20s. If we are talking about economic readiness, the answer often leans toward the late 20s or early 30s. If we are talking about divorce risk, the evidence generally suggests that marrying too young is risky, while waiting until at least the mid-20s is usually associated with more stability. If we are talking about personal choice, the right answer depends heavily on the woman, the man, their values, their preparation, their family goals, their character, and the quality of the relationship. So the most responsible answer is this. For many women in the United States today, the strongest general marriage window appears to be somewhere from the mid to late 20s into the early 30s. More specifically, a reasonable evidence-based range is roughly 25 to 34, with many arguments pointing to 27 to 32 as a particularly balanced window. But that does not mean every woman should marry in that range. It means that on average, that range often balances maturity, fertility, education, economic readiness, and relationship stability better than either very early marriage or very late marriage. Let's unpack why. First, let's look at the demographic reality. Women in America are marrying later than they did in previous generations. The typical woman married much younger than she does today. Today, the median age at first marriage for women is around the late 20s. That means marriage in the late 20s is no longer unusual. It is close to the national norm. This is important because many online debates talk as if a woman who is unmarried at 27 or 28 is already late. But in modern America, that is not true. A woman marrying around 28 or 29 is close to the national median for first marriage. The culture has changed because the economy has changed, education has changed, gender roles have changed, and adulthood itself has changed. Young adults today are taking longer to finish school, start careers, become financially independent, buy homes, and have children. That is not always because they are irresponsible. In many cases, it is because the cost of adulthood has increased. College is expensive. Housing is expensive. Childcare is expensive. Healthcare is expensive. Many young adults are carrying student loan debt. Many do not feel fully financially independent until their late 20s or early 30s. So when people say women are delaying marriage, we should ask, delaying compared with what economy? Compared with what generation? Compared with what expectations? The first major parameter is biology. From a reproductive standpoint, women's fertility is not the same at every age. A woman's most fertile years are generally in her 20s. Fertility begins to decline gradually in the 30s and more noticeably after about age 35. That does not mean a woman cannot get pregnant after 35. Many women do. It does not mean pregnancy after 35 is automatically dangerous. Many pregnancies after 35 are healthy. But biologically, the probability of conception declines with age, the chance of miscarriage rises, and the risk of some pregnancy complications increases. This is one of the strongest arguments for not waiting too long if a woman strongly wants biological children. If a woman wants several children, age matters even more, because she needs time not only to marry, but also to conceive, recover, space births, and possibly deal with fertility challenges. A woman who marries at 24 and wants 3 children has a different reproductive timeline from a woman who marries at 36 and wants 3 children. This does not mean every woman should marry early just because of fertility. It means fertility is one real factor in the decision. A woman who wants children should be honest with herself about biology, not fearful, but informed. Modern medicine has improved fertility treatment, prenatal care, and reproductive options, but medicine has not eliminated age-related fertility decline. IVF can help some people, but it is not a guarantee. Egg freezing can preserve options, but it is expensive, emotionally demanding, and not a perfect insurance policy. So from a strictly biological perspective, the ideal marriage age for a woman who wants biological children may be earlier than the ideal age from an economic or career perspective. That is one reason this debate is so difficult. Biology and modern economics are not always aligned. The second parameter is psychological maturity. Marriage is not just about being physically ready or legally old enough. Marriage requires emotional regulation, patience, impulse control, conflict resolution, empathy, communication, sexual discipline, financial cooperation, and long-term decision-making. These qualities often develop with age and experience. The late teenage years and early 20s are often a time of identity exploration. Many people are still figuring out their values, career direction, personality, worldview, boundaries, and relationship expectations. That is why very early marriage can be risky. A woman who marries at 18 or 19 may still be changing rapidly. Her husband may also be changing rapidly. Their education, income, beliefs, ambitions, friendships, and emotional needs may shift significantly over the next 5 to 10 years. Sometimes couples grow together, but sometimes they grow apart. This does not mean young marriage always fails. Some people marry young and build strong lifelong marriages. A stable family background, strong community support, shared faith, economic help, emotional maturity, and commitment can make young marriage work. But statistically and developmentally, marrying too young often carries higher risk because the individuals are still forming their adult identities. By the mid to late 20s, many people have a clearer sense of who they are. They may have completed some education or training. They may have experienced enough relationships to understand what they value and what they cannot tolerate. They may be better at recognizing red flags. They may have learned how to manage disappointment, communicate more directly, and think beyond attraction. This is one reason the mid to late 20s often emerge as a strong marriage window. It is late enough for some maturity, but not so late that family formation becomes biologically or socially compressed. The third parameter is divorce risk. One of the most consistent findings in marriage research is that marrying very young is associated with higher divorce risk. Teenage marriages are especially vulnerable. Early 20s marriages can also carry more risk than marriages formed later. There are many possible reasons: emotional immaturity, financial instability, unfinished education, unstable employment, family pressure, unplanned pregnancy, poor partner selection, and lack of life experience. As people wait into their mid to late 20s, divorce risk generally declines. Waiting gives people time to mature, finish school, establish careers, and choose partners more carefully. However, there has been debate about whether waiting too long may eventually stop lowering divorce risk or even reverse the pattern. Some analyses have suggested a sweet spot around the late 20s to early 30s, often discussed as approximately 28 to 32. Other scholars have challenged how universal that finding is, but the broad point remains useful. Marrying too young is generally riskier, and marrying after some adult maturity is usually safer. But age alone does not protect a marriage. A 30-year-old can still marry the wrong person. A 35-year-old can still lack emotional maturity. A 24-year-old can have strong character and good preparation. Divorce risk is shaped by education, income, family background, religion, cohabitation history, children, conflict style, communication, infidelity, addiction, abuse, and expectations about gender roles. So when people ask, what age reduces divorce risk? The better answer is, not the age by itself, but the age combined with readiness. A woman is more likely to marry well when she has enough maturity to choose wisely, enough independence not to marry out of desperation, and enough humility to build a partnership. The fourth parameter is economic readiness. Marriage is not only romantic, it is also economic. Two people are joining lives: bills, housing decisions, career plans, children, insurance, debt, and family obligations. A marriage can survive financial hardship, but financial stress is one of the major pressures couples face. Money problems can create arguments, resentment, power imbalances, and delayed family goals. For women today, education and economic preparation matter deeply. A woman who marries before finishing her education may become more dependent on her spouse. That may work in some healthy marriages, but it can also reduce her options if the relationship becomes unhealthy. A woman with education, employable skills, and some financial literacy has more bargaining power, more security, and more ability to contribute to household stability. This does not mean a woman must be rich before marriage. It does not mean she must have everything figured out. But it does mean that entering marriage with no plan, no skills, no income path, and no understanding of money can create vulnerability. This is why the late 20s and early 30s may be economically attractive. By then, many women have completed college, graduate school, vocational training, military service, or early career development. They may know their earning potential. They may have learned how to budget, manage debt, and live independently. They may have a clearer sense of the kind of partner who fits their life goals. At the same time, there is a trade-off. Waiting for perfect economic readiness can become a trap. Some people keep delaying marriage until they have the perfect salary, perfect house, perfect savings, perfect body, perfect career, and perfect confidence. But life is rarely perfect. Marriage itself can be a wealth-building institution when two responsible people combine incomes, plan together, and support each other's growth. So the goal should not be perfection. The goal should be basic readiness. The fifth parameter is education and career development. For many women, the early 20s are years of education and professional formation. This is especially true for women pursuing careers in medicine, law, academia, engineering, business, science, technology, or other demanding fields. Marriage during this period can be supportive if the partner is mature and aligned with her goals. But marriage can also become stressful if the partner resents her ambition, expects traditional domestic labor without negotiation, or pressures her to sacrifice long-term goals too early. A woman's optimal marriage age may therefore depend on her educational path. A woman who completes a bachelor's degree by 22 and enters a stable career may be ready for marriage at 24 or 25. A woman in medical school, law school, doctoral study, or a demanding professional pipeline may not feel ready until 28, 30, or later. A woman who wants to start a business may also need time to build stability before marriage and children. The key issue is alignment. Marriage does not have to stop a woman's education or career. In a healthy partnership, marriage can support growth. But if the relationship requires a woman to abandon her purpose, shrink her ambition, or carry all domestic responsibilities while also working, then the timing may be less important than the partner's mindset. This is especially important in modern marriages where women are often educated, employed, and financially contributing. A man who wants a successful marriage with a highly capable woman must be prepared to support her development, not compete with it. A woman choosing a husband must evaluate not only whether he loves her, but whether he respects the life she is building. The sixth parameter is physical health and pregnancy health. Age affects pregnancy, but age is not the only health factor. A healthy 36-year-old may have a safer pregnancy than an unhealthy 24-year-old. Weight, blood pressure, diabetes risk, nutrition, smoking, alcohol use, stress, sleep, access to health care, and chronic conditions all matter. So when discussing the optimal age for marriage and motherhood, we should not reduce everything to age. Still, age matters. Pregnancy after 35 is often described clinically as advanced maternal age. That terminology can sound harsh, and many clinicians now try to discuss it more sensitively. The point is not to shame older mothers. The point is to recognize that certain risks become more common as maternal age rises, especially after 35 and more so after 40. But marriage is not the same as pregnancy. A woman can marry at 31 and have a child at 33. She can marry at 28 and wait until 32 to have children. She can marry at 35 and have one child. She can marry at 25 and choose not to have children. Therefore, the optimal age for marriage may differ from the optimal age for first birth. Those were often closely linked. In modern America, they are often separated. A responsible discussion should say this. If a woman wants biological children, especially more than one, she should consider fertility timelines when thinking about marriage, but she should not marry the wrong person just to beat a biological clock. Marrying poorly can harm both the woman and future children.